Hello guys, and this is Scott here, and welcome to another historic video. It's been a very long time since we've done some of these, but I think it's about time we start picking back up with these and looking at some more weather events. And in this one, if in case you couldn't tell from the title, we're having a look at the summer of 1990. Now the summer of 1990 was a very interesting summer because it saw, at the time, the all-time UK temperature record falling. It had a spectacular heat wave in the early August of that year, and some incredibly high temperatures were recorded in this. So I thought it'd be a fun one to have a look at, since we had a very warm start to this summer, but it seems to have gone down the pan. So I want to show you something that can happen when you actually do get decent weather setting up in August. So just before we get started looking at the charts, I'd just like to tell you that the facts and figures that you hear in this video come from Trevor Harley's personal weather website. He has a data set of information going back to the start of the 1900s, and smaller fragments of information going back further than that. It really is a brilliant resource for these videos, and I couldn't do it without his website. And also the charts that I'm using in this video come from the historical archive at wettercentral.de. They have an archive of charts that's just recently been updated that goes back to January the 1st, 1851 now. So if you'd like to request a historic video, it doesn't have to be from 1871 anymore. You can actually now go back to the mid-1800s. So that's opened up, and there's a few more weather events as well. So looking at this video now, we're going to start off on the 27th of April 1990, because we got a bit of a teaser, we got a bit of a teaser heat wave in the spring. We recorded some very high temperatures in late April and early May. Now April 1990 was actually quite an interesting month because it started off with quite a severe frost. We just had a very mild winter, and we had some severe frosts in the early April. But as we got to this end of April, as I said, we got some very high temperatures. So as we move from the 27th and into the 28th, you can see the Azores High, which is often a very prominent feature in some of our hot summers, is building through the country. And as we move into the 29th, this brings some very warm and dry weather for the time of year. And in fact, we have temperatures climbing up into the low 20s there on the 29th of April. And actually, as we go into the final day of the month, we have temperatures going up into the mid-20s. In fact, we have 25 Celsius at Aberdofi in Wales. That's exceptionally warm for the end of April. Now as we go into May, this heat wave carries on into early May 1990. And overall, May 1990 was a very warm and a very dry month. It has a central England temperature of 12.6 degrees. And actually, every day between the 30th of April and the 6th of May, 25 Celsius was recorded. So this is what was really responsible for that CET. And also it was a very dry month, as I mentioned. In fact, northwest London records just 1 millimetre of measurable rainfall throughout the entire month. So a bit of a spring drought going on here. But we start off there on the 1st of May, and again we have temperatures up into the mid-20s. As I said, this was part of the period where 25 Celsius was recorded. And in fact, as we move through into the 2nd of May, look at that, we get a stunning area of high pressure right across just to the east of the country. And then this brings up some very warm air. And in fact, for 3 consecutive days, which is the 2nd, 3rd and the 4th of May, we actually record 28 Celsius. That's just over 80 Fahrenheit. I think that's 82 Fahrenheit. And that's exceptionally warm for early May. And in fact, as we move into the 3rd of May, this is where we record the highest temperatures of this. In fact, we record 28.6 degrees at Worcester in very prolonged sunshine. There was a notably strong sun in this spell. So absolutely stunning weather for heat lovers, and as I said, it does provide a bit of a teaser of what's to come later on in the summer. And those are the upper air temperatures there on the 3rd of May, and as you can see, quite obviously, we've got very warm air across the country. And as we move into the 4th of May, this was a very warm day as well. We do, again, temperatures up past 28 degrees, but slightly lower than they was the day before. And as we move into the 5th, again, a very warm day, but that ridge is very slowly starting to collapse now. So as we move into the 6th of May, we bring this trough down from the north, and overnight 6th and into the 7th of May, that brings an end to that spring heat wave there. And as I say, this is something you often see just before the best summers. You often get a bit of a teaser that presents itself in late April and through May that just sort of gives you a bit of a hint of what could possibly happen later on in the summer. But after that, we then move to the start of June 1990. And what's quite remarkable about this summer is it's not quite as good as you'd perhaps think it is. Despite that record-breaking heatwave in the August, we actually had quite a poor June to put up with. In fact, June 1990 was a very cool and wet month, and it was also a very dull month as well. In fact, London only records 90 hours of sunshine throughout the whole month. So very disappointing for June, especially when you consider that it's the month that has the longest daylight. And June 1990 also has a central England temperature of 13.6 degrees. So there we are on the 1st of June, and that, of course, that May heat is long gone, and we've got low pressure to the northwest of the country. Now as we move through to the 4th, that area of low pressure just sits there. In fact, we bring a cool northwesterly wind down, and that carries on through the 7th there, quite an autumnal area of low pressure there, and on into the 9th as well. In fact, we bring down a bit of a northerly wind there. On into the 12th, high pressure does try to have a go, but that was quickly collapses away through the 15th and into the 18th of June, where we bring another area of low pressure in across the country. You know, absolutely no sign there of what's to come later on. And actually this follows on from some very poor summers in the 80s. The mid to late 80s saw a run of very poor summers before we got a decent one in 1989. And I'd imagine at the time they probably just thought this was the weather going back to what they'd been used to really through the summer, generally cool, wet, quite breezy and dull weather. And for a time that was the case through into the 21st of June. In fact, the charts actually start to look quite alarming there. You know, high pressure building to the north, and that's never a good sign in the summer, and potentially hinting that quite a dismal summer in general is on the way. And the weather remains poor through the 23rd and into the 26th of June. High pressure having a bit of a go before again on the 28th and then into the 30th of June 1990, that ridge is flattened off. So really quite a poor month. And it actually continues as well into the start of July. So on the 1st of July 1990 there you can see that pretty hideous chart there with low pressure over the country. Well, slap bang over the country I should say. And July 1990 was actually a very contrasting month, and it has a central England temperature of 16.9, which is pleasant enough. It's certainly very decent, you know, certainly pleasantly warm. But there was a huge divide in the rainfall for this month. In fact, northwest Scotland has a very wet month, whereas the southeast actually has a very dry month. In fact, Heathrow records just 7mm of rain this month. And it follows on, of course, from that cool, wet June. That weather pattern persists throughout the first half before the warmer side of summer 1990 shows itself throughout the middle of the month. So as I said there on the first, we've got that area of low pressure sat slap bang on top of the country. And that goes on into the 3rd really, there's no change. Through into the 5th of July again, another very autumnal area of low pressure there. That looks pretty dismal actually, down to 990 millibars. And really some quite breezy weather as well around those tight isobars. So again, no sign of the summer, but not long now. That will change pretty quickly. Because as we go through into the 7th, the Azores high tries to have a go. Through the 9th, the Atlantic tries to fight back, but as we go through into the 10th of July, now the Azores high is starting to make its move, and as we move through into the 11th of July, it now starts to completely take over the pattern. And in fact, from that cool wet start, we actually start to set up a bit of a drought now around the middle of July. And in fact, this period actually marks the beginning of 38 consecutive rainless days throughout much of southern and southeastern England. So very much a summer of two halves really. This is often what you call a backloaded summer, which is where, the poor weather shows itself through June. July is often an improving month, and then August is generally a hot month. In fact, that's quite the opposite to what this summer has been so far. But back to this, through the 12th now and into the 13th, you can see now that area of high pressure from the Azores has now completely taken over the pattern. And actually through the 14th and the 15th of July, now that just sits across the country, and now we're starting to drag up some very warm air from the continent. So temperatures are now back up into the mid-20s, even starting to touch into the upper 20s, and now the summer has finally shown its hand at this late stage. And that stays the same into the 16th and the 17th of July. We do bring a bit of a trough through there on the 16th. So that, I'd imagine, probably brought quite a few thunderstorms as that instability interacting with the warmth. Again, through the 17th and into the 18th and the 19th of July, that high pressure now has just sat across the country. So as I said, a complete change to the first half of the summer there. And temperatures rise further because as we go through into the 20th, we now really start to import some very warm air into that area of high pressure. And as we go into the 21st, we actually set a temperature of 33.3 degrees at Jersey. So some very warm weather. Of course, we're near the peak of the summer now. So we're at the perfect time to be, seeing the chances for some record heat. And I show you the upper air temperatures there, and you can see the 15 Celsius isotherm is starting to come into the south of the country. And whenever you've got that in place, that's often a sign of some very hot weather to come. And also notice as well how hot the air is to our south. That's going to play a very big part as we move through the rest of July and into August. And as we move through into the 22nd and the 23rd of July, that high pressure, as I said, just sat around the country again. So more warm, dry, pleasantly fine summer weather on offer. Through the 24th and the 25th, we tried to get a bit of a breakdown through the 26th and the 27th of July. You see low pressure does come up against that trough, and I'd imagine, again, that probably produced quite a few thunderstorms. But no, the high pressure holds it at bay. Through into the 28th and the 29th, the Atlantic again really having a go there on the 29th. But again, the high pressure holds it at bay. And then now this is where we're going to start to see that incredible heat wave of August 1990 set up. Because as that low pressure clears away to our north on the 30th of July, it brings a warm front through the country. and this starts to bring some very hot air in behind it. And as we finish off July on the 31st, the Azores high again is building into that heat, and we now once again have temperatures going up above 30 degrees. And that takes us into the beginning of August 1990. And August 1990 is a historic month. It has a central inland temperature of 18.0, which is not quite as high as you'd expect, but you do get things like this with the weather sometimes. And of course, this month was most famous for that incredible heat wave that set the scene across the country in the first week of the month. So we start off there on the 1st of August, and high pressure is just well and truly in charge. There's absolutely no sign of that trough getting in, and we've got hot air sat across the country. And on the 1st of August we have 33 degrees once again at Jersey and also at Heathrow. So once again it's one of those classic cases where you set the hot air in place, and under high pressure temperatures just build up slowly and slowly, more and more each day. So as we go through into the 2nd, again the temperatures are slightly higher. In fact, on this day we pushed the temperatures up to 34 degrees, and that temperature was quite wide spread across the country. And again there's some really hot temperatures being recorded. In fact, Hawarden Bridge records 35.2 degrees, which sets a new Welsh record, and we also have 32.2 Celsius at Kelso, which was almost a Scottish record. And for the vast majority of the country, actually, the 2nd was the hottest day. But as we move through into the 3rd, this is where the hottest day of the 20th century occurs. And the 3rd of August 1990 was the hottest day, and was a historical day as well, to say the least. And as you see in the north, what we've got the Atlantic trying to come through. And so this means for northern areas, the temperatures are slightly colder on the 3rd of August 1990. But in the south and the east, we hang on to that heat, and we see temperatures widespread above 35 degrees. And then we break the record of 37.1 degrees, which is 98.8 Fahrenheit at Cheltenham. And Trevor Harley notably states on his website that the nation held its breath on this day, and it was only because the wind died. This was because the record was set. So after all that build up, we finally break the record, and we see a new record that was a new record set from 1911. So it's a good 80 years that we're seeing this record. And so under those clear skies we do have some fantastic temperatures. And other high temperatures that were recorded in this was 33.5 degrees at Cardiff on the 2nd, 34.9 at Birmingham also on the 2nd, and Manchester also records 33.7. And again that was also on the 2nd. So under those incredible intense heat and the sunshine, we finally break the record. And those are the upper air temperatures there on the 3rd of August. The 15 Celsius isotherm right through the country, so it's hot across a vast majority of the country. And that heat hangs on overnight into the 4th. And then actually the 3rd and into the 4th of August 1990 was actually the warmest night on record across the whole of the country. In fact, we have a minimum of just 23.9 degrees at Brighton. So a truly phenomenally warm night here. That's when the weather forecasters often talk about uncomfortable sleeping conditions. That really is, that really is about as uncomfortable as nights get in this country. But nonetheless, across the rest of the country on the 4th, and again another very warm day. Temperatures are slightly lower than the 3rd, but again, still widely up into the high 20s, low 30s under glorious sunny skies. But all good things must come to an end, I'm afraid, because as we go through into the 5th, we do bring finally a cooler northwesterly through the country. Of course, if you hate heat, this was a very big relief for you. But if you're a heat lover, unfortunately, things do have to come to an end. And as we go through the 6th and into the 7th of August, we change the air mass, but high pressure does try and come through. So through the 8th and the 9th, the high pressure builds back through the country, but of course now we're sort of under what you'd generally expect in summer. So temperatures in the low to mid 20s and feeling very pleasant, but that severe heat that was present early on in the month has now been pushed back away into the continent. And through the 10th and into the 11th of August, again, things just stay where they are. Before really then, by the middle of the month, things do start to turn a bit more unsettled then. So through the 13th and into the 15th of August, cooler weather does return. And this was the end of that 38-day drought. Overnight 14th and into the 15th, we bring a band of rain across the country, and that brings the first significant rainfall to a lot of southern and eastern areas since the middle of July. So that 38-day drought actually comes to an end on this day. And then we keep things generally unsettled then through the 17th and into the 19th of August. And again, this does explain why the CET is a bit lower. But, again, you can't really complain after that very warm spell early on in the month. But actually, as we get through to the 21st, high pressure actually does try and have another go. So as we move towards the end of August, of course, we're getting quite late in the summer now, and there are signs that heat could return. And then as we go through the 22nd and into the 23rd of August, again the Azores high has another go, builds through the country, and actually on the 24th and the 25th of August, we actually get some severe thunderstorms in Ireland and the east of England, as that ridge just weakens slightly and we bring low pressure out of Spain and France. So we do get one very good thundery spell in this month as well, so again really a classic summer month despite that unsettled period in the middle of the month. But actually, again, as we go through the 26th and into the 27th of August, high pressure actually has another go, and through the 28th and into the 29th we actually again record 31 degrees in the east. So the summer does go out with another hot spell before on the 30th and the 31st of August we finally bring cooler weather through the country. And then what was interesting about this actually was the summer actually didn't return in September. It was one of those cases where the heat ended at the end of August and then autumn pretty much arrived bang on cue. So if you're expecting a September heat wave this year, unfortunately that didn't happen. September 1990 was actually slightly cooler than average, but of course, if you don't like heat, that was probably a good thing. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. So if you've enjoyed this historic video, be sure to give me a like and also subscribe if you want to. And as always, if you have requests for historic videos, please let me know either on Twitter or in the video description. That's up to you. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.